and he's in the middle of a demo, so he can dive into something a little bit more in detail.
Okay, well then that's great.
So we'll be flexible. We want this to be interactive, so we definitely want questions.
Fantastic. All right, and as a quick reminder for some of our attendees who are joining us, this is being recorded, and I will be putting the link into the chat along with some other upcoming events that you might be interested, especially since we're about to have our release for Rome, right?
That's right.
So we have a lot more information coming. All right, and with that, let's go ahead and take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are so excited to be here. You know, this is our Rome release, and it's got some very, 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 very cool features. Utkarsh is kicking off our series. I'm very happy to be joined by him as our product manager for our risk management products. And as we said, we've got some new updates on the store for integrated risk management, which we'd like to share with you. We've actually got an entire series that we'd like to share. This is our first in the series. Every week, we're going to have 1 or 2 webinars that walk you through the different new interface for integrated risk management. It's a brand new look. It's helping you to streamline your operations, to consolidate everything in one place. It improves decision making, and it makes taking action a lot more easily. So without any further ado, please make note of all these dates as we walk through our BCM next week, privacy management the following week, policy and compliance management, and audit management the week after that, our vendor risk management, and we finish up our series with our regulatory change management user experience. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Utkarsh, who is going to show you a live demo of the product.
Thank you. Thanks, Teresa. Hi, everyone. Utkarsh here. So quick intro. I'm Utkarsh, part of product management team at ServiceNow, focused on risk management. And I'm really excited today to show you what we have done. So I know we were keeping silent from last 1 year, and you may be wondering what's happening with ServiceNow. Why are there no updates with all new applications? Because we are all busy, heads down, trying to reimagine the user experience for our customers. So we have heard it loud and clear from all of you, from our partners and potential customers as well. This functionality is great, but the UI is kind of old. Now, the challenge with us is how do we make it more modern? How do we make it efficient for our users? So what we did is we leverage what we call it as persona-based workspace to actually bring all of the important information as well as create a user experience which is not just intuitive for the users, but also more cohesive and I would say more guiding in nature. And I'll show you some of this. So now what I'm seeing on the screen right now is really a homepage for a persona, which we call it as an operational risk manager. So what we have done is, depending on the persona that you're logging in, for example, if you're an IT risk manager, you would see a different homepage, or if you are an operational risk manager, you will see a different homepage. And the idea is, when you're an IT risk, the kind of information you look at is a bit different when you're in operational risk. So you're now making into the space where we will be able to differentiate between different domains and be able to offer much more cohesive experience for it. Let me just give you a quick summary of what's happening around this busy page that we look at. So on this page, the idea is as soon as an operational risk manager logs in, on his day-to-day basis, he's sitting in the second line of defense, and he wants to keep a constant tab across the risk posture for his organization. So I can see that from the multiple risk assessment viewpoints that I have, I can actually see that the risk has been assessed, and I can keep a tab on what's happening from an enterprise risk perspective or what's happening from an operational risk perspective when the business is doing their risk. So I can look at the entities that are at highest risk. I can look at the net loss that we have incurred, definitely way too high for this organization here. And there are a lot of KRI breaches happening. Oh, things are not going great. Why they are not is because maybe there are a lot of risk in this zone of high impact and high likelihood that are getting materialized. I know this is my inherent risk profile, but is it the same for the residual? maybe not, right? So yeah, residual is definitely getting reduced. So I can see there are controls that are functioning and still, but there are these two action items essentially I have. So what I can do is I can click on it and go into that particular record if I want to. So you see how we have quickly enabled the user to get to a particular area from a quick summary that he was looking at. Also on the right hand side of the page, you'll see actions, right? These are tasks and these are quick actions that the user can take. So sometimes as an operational risk manager, you may be doing some of the tasks on behalf of the first line, or you may be reviewing and approving stuff, right? So you need to have all of your different workflows within GRC embedded into one place. So what we did is so all of your different workflows, be it your risk assessments, risk events, issues, out of those workflows, whatever tasks that are assigned to this particular logged in user, those are displayed in one consolidated place. So no longer you have to go across multiple modules trying to figure out, or maybe keep a constant tab on your emails to say, oh, what are the different tasks that are assigned to me. So you can see here, I have my control attestation task, I have my indicator task, I have my issues, risk assessments, risk events. And the good thing about this is it's not just specific to you as a user, but also your team. So if you are part of a particular group or more groups, you can actually look at these different tasks that are assigned to you. If there are items that you have reported, you can see them here too, saying, okay, I reported 5 issues, what's happening around those. And if you're silently observing certain records in your watch list, that's available too. So this is really one place for you to go into to say, what are the different tasks I'm supposed to do? So isn't this cool, right? And we believe that this will help our users complete these GRC tasks. And this is one excuse less to say, oh, I didn't look at the email that was sent by the system. Okay, awesome. So along with it, you also have things that are important to you, like items like that needs your attention. So we are trying to bring in the key insights that a user may want. Like, for example, there are 2 risks, but among those 2 risks, there are no controls defined. So maybe that's the reason these risks are high. Or if there are overdue tasks across the organization that you're managing from a program management perspective, you can look at those tasks and see why those people are not performing those tasks. So really a lot of focus on program management because the role entails that. Similarly, from a monitoring standpoint, you want to look at the complete program, your operational risk program, saying how are my controls functioning, are those testing, the control testing has been done or not, how are my KRIs and KCIs performing, what's my risk events, right? How much is my gross loss, how much is my net loss in those events, and what are the open issues. So all of the important information that a user need to help him prioritize his day-to-day work is actually available on this page here, right? Along with it, there's also a dedicated issues page. One of my colleagues will get into the details of this page in later this session, but I can tell you, if you want to get anything around issues in the system, right, this is the place to go. So essentially, it looks at issues that by state, maybe by issue type. So there's a lot of goodness here on this page, and it would become the go-to place for you to manage all your issue needs. So you can create new issues, you can maybe look at create a new remediation task. So a lot of these information that are critical for you as a user are available for you on this page. Now, on the module list specifically, I have a completely revamped module list, right? So now this is organized into your 5 pillars of your operational risk. So for example, all of your items are available here, but then your library, your risk assessments, your risk response, control testing, indicators, risk events, all of them is available to you into one central place. So you don't have to hop on into multiple places, but this is your workspace, as we say, for all your operational risk management. Isn't this cool, Teresa?
I was just going to say, this, I think what I like most about this is the fact that you've got everything consolidated in one screen, really. You've got your links on the left that you can easily click into. You've got all the information in the middle. And then the fact that this navigation has been streamlined so much that it makes it easy to find. I mean, I think one of the hardest things that I had when I was trying to navigate is trying to figure out, and I would favorite things, but then still I'd have to still scroll up and down to be able to find what I was looking for. So yeah, this I'm hoping people really are excited about this, because to me, this is really cool.
Absolutely. And talking about the favorites, so one of the things I always used to do was I used to create the list for my own self, saying, oh, I don't want to look at the entire risk library. I'm only interested in, let's say, fraud related risk. But one of the challenges I always faced is you have to go select that again and again. Now, what you can do is you can create your own list and save it here to say this is your own list. So there's a global list, and then this is my list of things I always worry about. So let's say if you want to worry about your fraud risk as an example, you can see all the risk where your parent is internal fraud. So this is very cool from an overall perspective. Now let me show you.
We actually have some. We've got a couple questions here actually.
Sure.
So you tell me whether or not you're going to be covering this. Are you still able to group the attestations from this view?
Oh yes, absolutely. So group attestation is available now as part of the September release. I know it was not in March, but it is available now as part of the March release. Oh, sorry, September release.
the one that just went out. Okay, so the next question is the tailored view on the workspace based only on the role of the logged in user. For example, ServiceNow Risk Manager, or for example, can we have different groups having a different workspace view?
Oh yeah, it's completely persona driven. It's completely role driven. So what we have done is we have in fact created two new roles in the system. One is an operational risk manager, and the other one is an IT risk manager. And these are really, I would say, a higher authority role, because automatically it encompasses roles like compliance manager and audit manager, because we need to provide those functionalities across. But it's completely role driven in nature.
Okay, so the next question. On the lists available on the left, can you tailor visibility? For example, on the legacy UI, which I guess we're calling classic UI, I believe. On the filter navigator, we could restrict visibility on modules based on roles.
Absolutely. So that is still available. So what we have done is these are things you want to see as an operational risk manager, because you're on the second line. That's why you're able to see everything. But if you want your, let's say, the first line only to look at entities that are belonging to you, all that flexibility that you get in the platform is still available now in your list views.
And then a couple more here. This one, I'm not sure if you're going to get into it or not, but how are the issues linked to risks, and how do you manage them?
Yeah, maybe we'll take that up if time permits. Towards the end of the call, I can talk about how your relationship is established. Otherwise, okay, I can get back to them offline as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then finally, and I think this is something you're probably going to show when you get back over to the workspace, but are risk and advanced risk combined in one application now from Rome? And I think
no.
Yeah.
So these are separate applications still. What we have done is, this is a net new application on the store called GRC Risk Management Workspace. Now, depending on the entitlement you have, if you have advanced risk, it would obviously take up advanced risk. But if you have still the classic risk, it will tailor your risk assessment to your classic risk needs. So it's still supported. So those two applications are still separate.
But I think what's really nice is back on the homepage, you've got the drop down at the top that allows you to change views. So what's cool about this is, depending upon what you've purchased, what you're entitled to, that drop down list is going to change, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have to try to figure. You're not trying to rationalize a couple of different dashboards anymore. You now have one, and it's smart, and it knows what it is you have, and it will give you those options, and then you can then choose the way you want it to look.
Absolutely, Teresa. Awesome.
That's it. That's all the questions for the moment.
Thank you. So let me show you now how the reimagined record page experience look like, right? So we have seen this, right, with multiple clients of ours. There are two kinds of records in ServiceNow GRC. There are records where people are going to understand the context. So these are like libraries, your risk libraries, your control libraries, or your entities, so as to speak. So where you're going in to understand what's happening around that particular record. So you're not going there mostly for action, but I would say more insights, right? Trying to understand what's happening around that. So what we did is we thought, what if we could have integrated analytics on this page? So we know that there's a lot happening around this risk, let's say misuse of authority. But when I want to actually understand what's happening from a 360-degree viewpoint, be it your issues, risk events, control testing, I should be able to look at all of this information here. So what we did is we thought, what if we could have an integrated analytics here to say, what's my aggregated risk posture? So when I look at this record, I can understand that this risk is high, and what's contributing towards that high is probably there is a high risk within Acme Global Banking that is actually pushing the entire risk up from a trend perspective. And there's a nice trend also that I can see that, yes, this is actually on an upward path, much beyond our thresholds. I understand this risk posture is probably something bad, but how do I understand that what's happening around KRIs or open issues, open risk events around this record? So it will show you that. So it will bring in saying there are 5 KRI breaches that have happened around it, or there's one open issues, as well as there are 23 risk events that are open around it. Among those, which are 4, you have near misses. So also from a or quarter-on-quarter trending perspective, you can look at the trends of your compliance scores or your control effectiveness, as well as the number of risk events that have been reported. So all of this information around this particular single risk is actually available to you on this page here. Now you may be wondering, where did our form field view go, right? So that's still available. It's in the details view. But like I said, a lot of times customers were not using or coming here to maintain information. They were coming here for more consumption of information. And that's where all the overview pages help. Similarly, if there were other relationships that were shown on the bottom of the page, and personally, I used to hate it because it was so counterintuitive, but now everything is on the top, so that you know that these are the different relationships this object has, and it's logically grouped as well. So if there are a lot more, it's not showing you a lot of this here. Now, if you look at this is all great, but how do I understand these relationships much better in a much more organic fashion? And what we did is we created something, we call it as a 360-degree view. This is a net new visualization in the system, which shows what are the different relationships this record has and how are those impacting this record. For example, in this case, if I have a risk of misuse of authority, I can see this risk applies to 4 different entities for me. And I have 5 mitigating controls in place for this risk. There are also 5 KRIs which are in place to monitor this risk across. Yeah, all good. But what's happening in the transaction level? So I can see there are 8 issues related to this risk. Oh man, something not right. There are just 3 risk assessments that have been performed on it. So you can look at those here or go into the details of any of this. For example, if I want to go back and see what's happening around Acme branch banking in particular, I could simply click it, and then it would bring me all the information around Acme branch banking. So in case there are more relationships, like in this case here, there are actually 9 relationships that are included in it. You can simply click on this, see the others. If you want to see all of them at once, you can see the different ones. So for example, if you want to see active policy exceptions, right? It also shows you this. Now there may be cases where you're not interested in really a policy exception, right? So what we did is we also created views on this. So if you're just interested in maybe a risk view, so you can simply refresh this out and it will show you only risk related items. So this really helps the customer navigate these complex GRC relationships in a much more organic fashion. And the best part I personally like about it is contextual in nature, which means if I close this, go back on the breadcrumb on the top, I'm back to the place where I was. So I'm not losing the context. So no longer I have to go to the history to say, oh, this was the last transaction I did. The breadcrumb helped me get there quickly.
I think that 360-degree view is amazing. And I wish I could see people's faces when they actually see that, because it's so unique. And what you didn't show them, you could actually filter on that list. So if you've got a bunch of controls, for example, you can actually filter on the list to get to the control that you actually want. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really, I think it's just so awesome. And I think it's so unique.
So this is how you will see constantly these kind of record views are available to us, not only on this risk statement record, but also on, let's say, entity. So as an entity owner, if I want to actually have a constant tab on what's happening around my entity, so you can see the nice hierarchy around that entity. It also shows you indirect relationships. For example, the regulatory bodies that are applicable for this entity or the policies that are applicable. So this contextual panel on the right-hand side, it's really bringing in not just the directly related information, but also your indirect relationships around this record. And obviously you have this nice integrated analytics or an overview of this entity here. So you can look at and get a complete picture around this particular record. So that's how you would see this experience across multiple pages, be it your risk statement, entities, control objectives, even risk events. So you'll see this, right? So from the pages where people are coming in from consumption of information. So that's the key highlight here for us. Also, now switching gears, and let's say if you're really interested in doing things, right? So GRC is a lot of workflows as well. So how can we provide our users a guided experience so that when the second line or the third line wants to push a task to the first line, they are not required to be trained heavily. So I'll show you how we are rethinking about that experience as well. And for that, I'm going to take a classical example of an RCSA, your risk control assessment in the world of advanced risk assessment. So let's say there's a risk assessment that has been initiated to the first line, and I, as a first line user, is required to perform that risk assessment. Let's see how that experience looks like, right? Because we saw all this goodness here, but let's see how the transactional records look like. So what we did is, for those personas specifically, we created a portal. So now you have an out-of-the-box portal. It's pretty lean, it's pretty sleek, because all we are supposed to do as a first-line user, as an employee, is to say, what are the tasks that are assigned to you, right? So you need to quickly complete those tasks and be done with it. So you want something which is easy for your employees so that they can get to the task. So I can look at the different group tasks that are assigned to me. I can see there are 26 new tasks that are assigned to my team. I can click on it and I can again get to that complete task inbox for myself. So I can see the multiple risk assessments that are assigned to me. And what I'm going to do is maybe I'm assessing it by entity, right? That's a typical RCSA. So I want to say Acme branch banking, I'm responsible for all my risk assessments here. Now, this is the revised or the new user experience for your risk assessments. So now
I love this. I love this particular screen. I think it's so user friendly. That's what was.
Yeah, and this is great. I mean, from an employee perspective, this is great because it offers you inline help. A lot of times your employees will not know what an RCSA is, right? What are the different stages it needs to go through? So what we did is we embedded some kind of an inline help. And one of the things that surprisingly came across to me is a customer of ours asked, can we embed videos on this? We want our customers to maybe go through, or users want to go through a 5-minute video. I said, absolutely. Because all of this is actually built using a UI technology. We call it as a UI builder. So you can actually configure this as per your own organizational needs. So you can actually add more stuff. You can remove stuff if you want to. So you can actually personalize it and configure it as per your unique organizational needs here.
Which is perfect, because if you need to, one of the big values of this is having the text on the screen that explains what the process is that the user is supposed to follow. And if you've got specific instructions that are unique to you, you can actually add that right here.
Absolutely. Let me show you how the actual assessment experience is, right? And I'm going to use this single call to action called let's get started. And you would see it's very conversational in nature, right? So we try to simplify that complete risk assessment experience, bringing it very conversational in nature, and starts with the conversation saying, I know you did the assessment last time. Do you want to actually copy over your results? Maybe I would say no, just to show you how the assessment experience looks like for a fresh assessment. So now, as soon as you launch this page, you would see you get context on the top to say what is the risk that you're assessing, what are the different assessments you will have to go through, and in each of this, it would highlight how many are the mandatory questions that you're supposed to answer. So very similar to your questionnaire, where you have multiple sections, and within those sections, you have to answer some things. It will highlight you that. Along with it, there's also nice contextual information for you. So a lot of times when you're doing your RCSAs, you're looking to understand how I'm being asked, what is the financial impact of this risk for your business? I want to see the risk events. So maybe instead of showing a simple list, if you were presenting this graphically, the user would immediately get it, saying, oh, the net loss is this much. There were 2 events and there was a near miss. I can see now the net loss is somewhere around 1.69 million pounds. Let me see what does it mean from a low, medium, high perspective. And what I can do is simply click on this to show me a guidance to say, if the loss was within this particular interval, it's a low, is it a medium or a high? So now I can actually drive towards a data-driven risk assessment to say, yeah, from this case, I believe the financial impact is going to be medium. And if I want to add my comments around why I'm saying that, I could simply capture it here. So a lot of information that was there presented to an employee earlier is now being abstracted. So things like what is the score, what is the rating of it, and stuff like it, it's actually hidden behind the scene. So for an employee, he's just answering these questions from your RCSA perspective, and the system is doing the magic to say, what's my calculated risk scores? So I can see the system is saying, answer the mandatory questions and click save to actually say what your risk scores is. So I can see the risk score comes out to be high. Now, if you want to change it, I could simply use the simple action here and say, change it to maybe a medium and capture my rational. So isn't this conversational now? And yeah.
This is wonderful. This is truly wonderful. I think that it's so easy to use.
And yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna say we have a question. I was gonna wait till you got back over to the portal, but let me just ask really quick here. The portal you showed us, the business user portal, is that out of the box?
Yes.
And what is the prerequisite to install it? Are there certain plugins?
Oh yeah. So for installing these new experiences, you need to be on the Roam family version of the platform. And apart from that, as soon as you install this GRC risk management workspace, the portal is embedded into that. So you don't have to install any other plugin to get that portal experience.
A couple more questions just keep popping in here. How can I incorporate a risk quantification in this assessment that you're just working on right now?
I may need additional context. Maybe I'll contact offline with the attendee. Yeah.
And then let's see, can we still do an assessment on the same entity with different methodologies?
Absolutely. So all the power of your ARA engine and all the flexibility around it is still the same. So right now I'm showing you only drop-down kind of factors, which are now maybe radio buttons, so as to speak. But you could have different types of factors, all the different methodologies, everything is still there. From a data model perspective, there are no data model changes as such in the ARA.
And then the last question here is, and I'm not sure if you're going to cover this or not, but how should we manage a 5x5 rating? Can it be configured? Can we configure a 5x5 rating?
Absolutely. So for those of us who are familiar with risk assessment methodologies, So where we used to go and define our risk assessment template or methodology, that's still available. So everything on the screen that you see is actually can be configured, is actually based on what methodology it is. And I'll take another example where you'll see how things have changed suddenly because your methodology is a different one.
Fantastic. I'm gonna hold the next couple questions as we move along here.
Awesome. So I'm going to show you now how do you assess control. So we looked at risk and we were doing a risk assessment. Now, when you move to your control assessment, you'll see the information on the right-hand side suddenly changes, right? Because now it's showing you information around controls to say, what are the open issues, how the control test results, what's my KCI failure percentage around these particular controls. I have the list of the actual controls. Now, if I want to add additional controls, I can. But let's say in this case, I don't want to, and maybe I just want to quickly assess each of them. So again, similar to your inherent risk assessment, you can go and assess each of these controls out and say how those controls are performing, right? How many of them are effective, ineffective, and so on and so forth. And that would compute my control effectiveness. Now, when I move to your residual, you can see my inherent risk was medium, my controls are effective, and therefore the residual is a low, and that's auto computed here. And again, making it very transparent. So the system gives you enough information on the screen to say, this is auto calculated. Now, if you want to change it, obviously you have the power to change it, but in case you're okay with it, you can move on to your risk response workflow to say, what are you doing about it? Are you going to mitigate it, accept it, transfer it? And now if I want to mitigate it, I can also define the plan of action here. So you don't have to jump between different screens to do your complete risk assessment workflows. It's one integrated screen, very guided, so that the user understands what he's supposed to do in that part of the stage of the workflow. And that's exactly what is presented to him. So you could define the plan of action to mitigate this further maybe. And I can initiate a review and approval. So you can see before you actually initiate a review and approval, it will show you a nice trend of where you are going with this risk. So I can see there's a sudden spike in the risk score, something not great for us, right? But it seems from last time we are coming down, so we should be okay. If I want to send across for my approval workflow, I can simply capture my comment saying kindly review and approve, and that would trigger an approval workflow to the respective individual who's going to look at it and approve it, and this is the approval for it. So that's how I can now complete my entire RCSA experience, so to speak.
I think the trend graphs that you're showing here and the ones that are on the homepage are probably some of the most useful things that we put on this new workspace, and you can drill into each of those little points as you highlight them too, to actually, if you wanted to get more details, which I think is great. So yeah, I think that's spectacular. A real quick question here we got is, how are business risk and business service risk differentiated?
So what we do is generally business service risk are more, I would say, operational resilience driven. So I've seen customers using a different risk assessment methodology and maybe tagging it to a different category, right, for assessing them, while your business risk are generally strategic risk, right, if I'm looking at them correctly. So that's the only differentiation. In terms of the workflows and other, they are pretty similar.
And then one more question came in here. Is this risk assessment aligned with the ISO 31000?
Yeah, we are in adherence to ISO 31000. The framework that we offer is actually configurable to not just ISO 31000. It can cater to COSO, it can cater to other IT risk assessment needs, and that's the beauty of using advanced risk assessment engine.
One more question here about the trend graphs. Everyone else likes my trend graphs also. Can you schedule jobs? Are the scheduled jobs scheduled by default, or do they need to be scheduled by the admin?
They're scheduled by default. So what we have done is, for a lot of them, they're using our performance analytics capabilities. So we have defined these P indicators out in the system. So you will get these P indicators, and there's a job which will take care of getting the latest and greatest information for you.
And performance analytics is included with all of our package, so people don't have to worry about not having it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, that's wonderful. Okay, I'm going to let you continue on while the questions keep coming in. Keep asking questions, people. This is wonderful.
Now, let me show you how do you actually integrate, right? We have been talking about there's an incident management workspace, there's a risk workspace. How do you still allow capabilities? Let's say if somebody was reporting a risk event from a particular incident, how do you actually do that in the system, even in the new UI? So what I'm going to do is open this incident up. So I just pulled up this incident records here, and I'm still in the same workspace, but it can pretty much do it from an incident workspace too. So similar to your older view where you could get a UI action to report a risk event, I still get those UI actions on the top. I can simply click this here, and the system will again auto populate these fields out. Now, one of the stark differences you will notice is what we have done is we have tried to make this very conversational again, to make sure that users who are not familiar what the risk events are, they have context around it, and we are not asking for information which they are not familiar with. So you can see this initiates a risk event injection. So be it your any place in the platform, be it your HR case, be it your incidents, you could actually report a risk event. Now, once this risk event is reported, you could actually look at, again, the complete information around the risk event. So for example, this is one such event, which is bank employee forced customer signature. And on this risk event, you can see, I'm able to see, say, what the life cycle is, saying, okay, it's an analyzed state. After that, it will go to awaiting approval. It will then go to approved, closed, rejected. Also on the top, I forgot to highlight there's summary fields. So this is really important for a user looking to quickly understand what this record is about. So when you're scrolling through a long record, let's say, and you don't want to lose a context, such as in this case, this is really a long scroll. So you have the context on the top. Along with it, you also have a scrolling feature here. So for example, all the fields that you're looking on the screen, there's a thought given to say, can we reorganize them? Like consistently, you'll see name description being on the top across the workspace, so as to allow customers to see what that record is. Along with other fields are logically grouped. So if I'm looking to get into a particular section, such as key dates, I can simply click and go to that section out. So say, what are the key dates around it, right? And I want to maybe update these fields out. So that's the one inherent advantage you would get. Again, your contextual information is available on the right-hand side. So if I have this risk event, now this risk event impacts my misuse of authority as a risk, what's the Basel categorization and what's the LOB hierarchy that it's impacting from a financial perspective. You can look at that information too. And obviously you have the overview page where all of this information is nicely presented to you, saying what's my gross loss, what's my net loss, what's my non-financial impact, right? And what are the items that are impacted, right? And obviously that 360-degree view as well, right? So everything giving you the power to actually understand that record, take actions on it, and be done with it to help you manage your risk proactively in the system.
We've got a quick question here on this. Is there a new plugin for the UI action of risk events from the incident form?
No. This is part of GRC Advanced Risk. So if you have that installed, there's a small configuration you need to make. And as soon as you make that configuration, it will be available for you.
And that information's in the documentation, so people can check that out. I think one thing that you're showing here, and I'm not sure you've called it out yet, is that the breadcrumbs up at the top up there.
Yeah.
That's allowing you to navigate around so nicely. I think that's something that is going to be I found it very helpful as I'm navigating through various levels and of records and screens and things to be able to get back home easily.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Teresa, 100%. I used to use this history, but it was so lost. Sometimes it was showing me a lot of clutter.
It was hard. It was hard. That was even hard to navigate.
Yeah. But I was using it to make sure that where I'm coming from. Now I have this breadcrumb on the top to do that. Thanks for highlighting that. Let me show you one last bit. So what we did is there are also complex workflows in GRC, right? So there are workflows like risk identification workflow from an application risk management capability perspective. So what we did is we actually implemented a capability within platform, which we call it as playbooks, to provide a more guided experience across, right? So this is a great example where you have a complex workflow which is driven into multiple stages, and within each stage there are multiple activities that the user is supposed to do. Like for example, in this case, as soon as you have a new application, which is a COVID-19 emergency exposure management application, I want to collect information around this business application from the application owner in order to manage the risk related to this application. So what the system did is it automatically initiated a task to Alfonso, and he actually completed that out. So it's now waiting for me to actually review it before it can move forward in the workflow. So I can review the responses that have been given by Alfonso. So I can see those responses across, and I can say whether I approve it or reject it. Let's say I approve it. What the system will do is it will now move to the second stage where I want to do an inherent risk assessment around it. So you can see again, the system has initiated a risk assessment smartly without waiting for me to create that action. And it's now waiting for me to complete an assessment on it. So I can click on this action here and initiate a risk assessment on this particular record. So I'll show you now how do you assess a business application directly using our advanced risk assessment engine. So I can again say start assessment. And what it's going to do is using the capability of automated factors within advanced risk assessment, it's going to bring in those information. So if you see, based on the assessment of the user or the responses of the user, I can see the integrity impact comes out to be high, the confidentiality impact is a low, and the availability impact is a medium. And with using these small highlighted blue boxes, it's showing that it's actually automated. You don't have to worry about responding to them. But there are questions that I want to get to. So for example, what's the weight of an asset, right? Or maybe what's the vulnerability, severity, and the exposure around it. So things like that, I could still respond to, and I can complete these assessments out. And once obviously I complete this, I will move to the next stage of the workflow where I would request an approval on it. Once somebody reviews it and approves it, it's going to move forward in the workflow to the other stages. So now your complex GRC workflows are broken down into smaller stages, and it's really providing that guided experience to you so that you don't have to actually learn the system a lot or spend a lot of time in training. And that's how we simplify the workflow here.
This is going to be so nice for users. It literally walks you right through it. Yep, this is wonderful.
So those are the key highlights, Teresa. I mean, I wanted to cover. If there are specific questions or queries, I would love to see them.
I think the only question we have, well, we have two questions, but the one question we're going to address at the end. The only question we have left is, about the issues that are linked to risks and how do you manage them? Do you want to try to show that now, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I can show that. So it actually gives me a great point to show you the issues page as well. So let me see if I have something in place, or in fact, let me create a new one, right? So let's say there's an issue in the organization we are talking about. Let's say there's a policy failure as an example. Tailgating, right? This is something which is very common in India, at least. People tailgate a lot, right? And let's say I want to relate it to a particular risk, maybe theft of information. So what I can do is click on this control/risk field here, and I can tag it to that particular corresponding risk. Let's say this is within Acme branch banking as an organization that I'm seeing, and I'm going to select that risk out. Yeah, maybe I don't have the right risk here in place, but I can simply see this here. So that's how you establish the relationship between an issue and a risk.
Very simple. Just a couple of clicks and a few drop downs.
Absolutely. And if you see again on this page here, I know I don't want to steal the thunder from other PMs.
Yeah, we have other ones. That's the beauty of going first, is you get to steal a little thunder now and then.
You'll see a lot of goodness here on the issue form too. I know Anushri is going to talk about a bit more on this. So I'll let her do that. But yeah, that's the key highlight here too.
In 2 weeks, join us for the compliance and policy and compliance webinar, and Anushri is going to walk us through this for sure. So the one question that we have left is around, everyone wants to know, this is fantastic. We want to move our people to this, but how hard is it to migrate to this new user interface? And I think, I'm sure you've got some anecdotal information there, but I mean, one of the things I do want to say is that we're going to be having some how-to videos up on the community that's going to show you and your folks how to use the new user interface. And I think, Utkarsh, you've obviously been showing customers this and, been talking about how easy is it to move from one user interface to the other. And honestly, I don't think that you've heard a lot of comments about it being extremely difficult. It's just a slightly new model, and it's going to take a little time to learn, but it's very, very intuitive. And like we've said, you've got a lot of guided experiences here.
Yeah. And just to add to that, right, as any change, I know it's tough. You have to retrain people, you have to actually handhold them. And we recognize as an organization. So ServiceNow is one such organization which recognizes this fact. So I can say that at least for next 2 releases, this is an alternative experience. So we are not gonna we will support the older experience too, for you to give that time so that you can move this migration, take your own time to move this across. And there's definitely a bit of learning, I would say, that your developers will have to do to understand how the UI builder works or how the new Seismic as a technology stack works. But once you're comfortable with it, I think it's going to be a cakewalk. And there's a ton of stuff available on the community already. So make sure your developers are going through it, as ServiceNow itself is going through a transformation. So this is not just specific to GRC or risk as a BU, but you'll see other BUs also getting transformed into new user experiences. And this is the future forward for us when we talk about ServiceNow UIs in the future.
Absolutely. And you said something that made me think of something. We're not going to be changing it right away. Our documentation obviously will, have the information on how to use the new user interface. You mentioned the UI builder. All of these interfaces that we're looking at right now can be configured. We do have a UI builder so that you can make changes and personalize them as your needs require. So we do have information on that also. The one more question coming in here, are the reports, can the reports be configured, which are 3-dimensional views? I'm not sure I quite understand that, but.
Yeah, I think we'll have to take it offline with the attendee. So I'll get back to you on that question.
Yeah, if you can, if the person who asked the question and could provide a little tiny bit more detail, that would be fantastic. We're going to be on for a few more minutes here as we wrap up, so we'll definitely try to answer that if we can get a little clarity on that. But those are all the questions. Obviously, you answered the other question, which was the rest of the ServiceNow is actually moving to this user experience also. So it's going to be consistency across all products. And we're actually really excited. Our product, our own product is at the forefront. We've really moved first. So there's, again, positives and negatives there, but we're going to give you guys time to migrate. And we think when you do, you're going to be very happy with the experience.
Yeah. And what I did is I just walked through some of these new pages. All of the non-admin experiences have been migrated to this new experience. From a roadmap perspective, admin experiences are planned for a future release. I would say somewhere around Tokyo and Utah as a time frame. But in the next release, what we're going to do is we're going to also release additional workspaces, essentially for additional personas. So these going to be somebody like sitting in 1.5 line, like somebody like a risk champion or a risk coordinator, so as to speak. So right now we did this for 3 personas, but with the next release, we're going to add in 2 additional personas for it. So there's a lot of things also upcoming from ServiceNow on a constant basis that you should look forward to in terms of how we are taking this journey across. So it's going to be a journey, and we are always open for feedback, comments on how we can improve it. So please feel free to use the idea portal to log your requests out, to provide feedback on to ServiceNow to how we can improve. And we are always listening to you.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely true. We've got some really great conversations going between our customers and you guys in PM. So very happy about that. Should I go ahead and steal it back from you to close things out?
Absolutely, Teresa.
All right, let me share back my llama here, my great new look. Again, reminding you guys of all the new the upcoming events that we've got. You can see the policy and compliance management one on October 7th. We'll have a lot of the issues management stuff that Utkarsh was talking about. Please, connect with us on the community. Those how-to videos will be going up out there. And take a look at the playlist that Lisa put in the chat to be able to see other Ask the Experts. And also, we hope to see you at Now at Work in October. I think you'll find that we have a lot of great sessions and a lot of new information that we'd love to share. So with that,
did we finish answering all the Q&A questions?
Maybe we have another one here. Another one popped up. Oh, the one question, I guess we talked about how we are going to be having ITSM and other products being able to be migrating to the new user interface. But the question, I didn't read the rest of it, is it going to be from Rome as well? And I do not believe, Utkarsh, you can correct me, but I do not believe ITSM has the new Rome user experience or the new user experience in Rome.
They are on the journey from what I know. They are also revamping some of the user experiences across, but I don't think it's Rome. I'll have to get back and confirm with their PM team.
Yeah, I don't believe it's Rome either. But ITSM is moving to the user experience, as is all the other products. So you can definitely, I guess the positive here is if you become familiar with the user experience for IRM, that by the time ITSM and the other products migrate their user experiences, you'll be a pro. And then the only question we have left is the reports that we need a little bit more clarification on. So definitely follow up with the person who asked that question and get a little more clarification to answer that. But other than that, I think we are all done. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Like I said, please see us Now at Work and make sure you join